Hey guys, in this video I want to talk about um, the dishonest God of creationism because I wanted to talk about how, although creationists claim that the universe is, at the most 10,000 years old, there is a perverse amount of evidence to the contrary. And so, if creationism was an accurate representation of how the world came into being, how we came into being, and how the universe ultimately began, then the God who created the universe in that creation event created it such that it appeared that that event did not happen, and the evidence supporting that view is quickly growing, and it's an incredible amount of evidence. And so, uh, to the contrary of the viewpoint of creationism, there's ice cores, bubbles of gas from very exotic past atmospheres that the Earth has had, that are recorded in these ice cores, which cannot really be accounted for unless you suggest that at some time in the past there were extremely different um, atmospheric makeups, and yet all life on Earth still survived. Those kind of things, as well as yearly changes in the ice, which are recorded in ice cores. So you can actually go and take a segment of ice, an ice core, and actually count the years back as far as you want. So there's that. There's tree rings, which actually some trees are old enough to actually be able to count back, older uh, than creationists would um, say that the entire universe actually is. But these trees are older. And then we have records like the records of magnetic reversals, um, which is when the magnetic poles on the Earth shift. And unless somebody wants to say that in the past 6,000, 10,000 years old, or 10,000 years, um, the poles have shifted tens of times, um, without any effects that we would notice on life or on anything to do with the rest of the biosphere or the planet. um, it gets ridiculous. And so magnetic reversals are recorded in cooling magma, at the bottoms of seafloors when the magma comes up. And so we have those records. We have radiometric dating. And I know I made a previous video about this, and I know that even if 99.9% of the radiometric dating that's done, that's found objects to be over 10,000 years old, even if all those dates are wrong, radiometric dating still is a resource for showing that the universe is at least older than 10,000 years old. So we have that. And then we have the distances and therefore time implied by the rest of the universe. When we look out, we see galaxies 10 billion light years away, but we can see them because the universe is older than that. It's older than 10 billion years, and so the light traveling from them is able to reach us. Um, and so we have that. And then we even have historical records of civilizations that are older than 10,000 years old, or older than 6,000 years old, and they keep records going back, a ridiculously far uh, distance. And so all of these things speak to the universe being at least older than 10,000 years old. And so if there is a God who initiated this creation event, he must have made the ice cores appear so that it would make sense that the universe was older and that there had been past atmospheres. He would have had to put the bubbles of methane, or of high levels of nitrogen, or or bubbles of atmospheres that have almost no oxygen in them. He would have had to go through ice all around the planet and put those bubbles in there, followed by making tree rings, uh, uh, or making it appear as if trees were actually older than they were. by putting tree rings or aging or some really complex chemical effect that he would have to make on all trees across the planet that are older than 6,000 years old. He would have had to make it appear as if there had been a cyclical cycle of magnetic reversals over the past, hundreds of millions of years, but not actually happen. He would have had to have made it look as if that those events had happened, but had not actually. Fossils. He would have had to put millions of fossils into the ground of all kinds of organisms that we've never seen before, that aren't alive now, and tried to mislead us into thinking that those organisms lived millions of years ago. And then the same thing goes for radio dating. He must have altered the chemicals in all these samples that we found that are revealed to be over 10,000 years old. I mean, it's the immensity of how elaborate such a plan would be is absurd. That someone would go through all that effort just to mislead us. And then my favorite is the distances and time implied by the rest of the universe, because all it takes, honestly, to figure out that the universe is not 6,000 years old or 10,000 years old is to look up, because we can see objects in the sky that are much, much, much older than 6,000 years old. We can, with binoculars, we can see galaxies that are thousands of light years away. Actually, I think the closest is Andromeda. It's 2.5 million, not thousand. But the point is that all you need to do is look up, and the universe tells you how old it is. And so, just to have the entirety of the universe be made with the light from all the stars already in transit to Earth, just so that we could think that the universe was actually as old as the speed of light would dictate that it is, but not really. Okay, to me, that is so meticulous, seeing that there are hundreds of billions of objects in the universe, and to go to every single one of them and create the light reflecting off of them and then send it to Earth so that it appears as if the universe is older, but have that not actually be the case. That, to me, that is one of the most absurd things you could suggest. And so lastly, we've got the historical records of humans on this planet. There were people alive writing their historical records down, making their history, building structures, the pyramids, dynasties in China that were in full swing at the time that creationists would say the universe began. And so that I think is probably the most obvious, besides just looking up. But we have records going back from civilizations that are older than the universe, according to creationists, which is an interesting situation to be in. But the main point is that either this is the most elaborate hoax that could ever be imagined, or the universe is as old as it says it is. So, I mean, I suppose you could get away with saying it was the devil that did all these things. But then, if you go there, you're saying the devil has a hell of a lot of power. And I know some people are willing to say that, but the devil can't create things. He can only work with what God gives him, assumingly. I mean, if Satan can create things, then we're all screwed, because he could just do whatever. But I'm assuming he can't actually create things. He can only deceive people. So it would have been God who did all these things. So What we have is a deceptive, dishonest God, and especially in accordance with things like the theory of evolution. I'm not even going to go into that. But the bottom line is that the God of creationism is necessarily dishonest.